Linda, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, where you live, and your involvement with the rug registry?
I'm Linda Alderdice, and I am in Nova Scotia, and rug hooking is very dominant here, as many people know, in Nova Scotia. My grandmother lived in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and she was a rug hooker. And I remember watching her hook the large living room rugs. Of course, as kids, it's not of interest, so they thought. So I didn't learn how to hook, but I do remember her hooking. And I have been part of the a rug hooking group and member of the Rug Hooking Guild here in Nova Scotia since about 2003. And I did that because we wanted to keep the craft of rug hooking going, because our ancestors hooked, and I wanted to help keep that going. So myself and my three sisters all went to a rug hooking course, a beginner's course, and we're still hooking today. I'm also president of the Rug Hooking Guild of Nova Scotia. I'm in my I'm going into my second term of office, but I am the chair of the Heritage Rug Registry. And what had happened is that we had a rug registry because we realized the importance of the stories behind the rugs. It talks about the culture of our communities, the times in which things were hooked, and it helps us understand and appreciate when you see these items, if they could only talk, what we would learn. And it's a passion of mine and the other two people on my committee. And we have been sharing people's stories about their rugs and registering them here in Nova Scotia for several years. And my husband is from Ontario, and we went to visit his family, including his mom, I'm going to say back in 1997, 1998. And I learned that she was a rug hooker in Ontario. She lived in Meaford. When she passed away, I'm going to say it's about 10 years ago, we acquired her rug. And so because of my passion and my interest in registering rugs and sharing the story and learning how old they are and what they're hooked with, it's all heritage. It's all history that we need to record. And so I wanted to register her rug with the Ontario Guild because she lived in Ontario. I registered it online and I wanted to get some response, and I didn't get a response. So I emailed the president and I said, tell me what I do now. And she said, I didn't know we had a rug registry. I said, well, I'll tell you what we do here in Nova Scotia. And so she said, well, can you help us get this one started? And so that's how I ended up your board. And that's how I ended up with the Guild's registry in Ontario. And Diane Anderson is very passionate about this too. She's a historian like you wouldn't believe. She's a digger, and she really has helped pull information together. It's a pleasure to work with her. And there's where we are.
So the two of you form a committee. Is that how it works?
We did. I have never met her. I have never Zoomed with her, but we do email. It works.
It works. And are there other rug registries in Canada? You've excuse me, you've talked about the one in Ontario and in Nova Scotia. Are there other rug registries?
There are. There is a registry in Newfoundland. There is one in New Brunswick. Prince Edward Island has one. It's my understanding Quebec has one. And the reason why I say that is because the last few months I've been getting requests for to register rugs that were made in Quebec, because there was a factory up there at the time. And I believe there is one out in Alberta. So we're not the only ones, but it is predominantly in the Atlantic Canada for sure, and Ontario as well.
can you tell us a little bit about the process for registering rugs?
Sure. So what I've learned, starting with Nova Scotia and Ontario as well, when we dug into the history there, is rugs that are at least 25 years old. So that's the benchmark. If you own a rug that's 25 years old, that was hooked by someone in your province, then that is the criteria. So, for example, if we have someone in Ontario who hooked the rug while they lived in Ontario and they're from Ontario, but they are out in Alberta, it still qualifies as a rug to register. So that's the basic rules around registering the rugs. And we have people that, they lived here for years and did what they did, and they moved away. But then you have people who were born from away and came and lived in your province for at least 25 years, and they have hooked these rugs, or they know somebody who hooked a rug that's in that province. Then that's the basic criteria.
Someone like me, now I have purchased a couple of obviously vintage rugs, but I know nothing about the background or their provenance. Can I register these rugs?
If somebody bought them in the province in which they live, and they appear to be about 25 years old, and they register them, we still record what information you have. And if the only information you have is that you bought it at a yard sale in Owen Sound, then that's what you put down. Because what happens is, once it's posted, other people recognize the rug, because the website goes all over the world, and you can receive information from other people that adds to your story about that rug. It happens. I'll give you a couple examples. What happened here in Nova Scotia is someone did just that. They bought it at a yard sale, and they registered it because it was in Nova Scotia. They live in Nova Scotia. There's an assumption there that it was hooked in Nova Scotia. And then I would get an email to say, well, that was my great aunt Hilda, who lived in Newfoundland, that hooked that rug. So what happened is, then we take that information and we transfer it to the Newfoundland Guild, to the Newfoundland Registry.
Okay.
It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. Or someone will tell us information and we already know some of the history and the style of the rug and the label that's on the back or whatever, to say, you know what, that isn't Nova Scotia, that's Quebec. So you need to register it with Quebec. So the more we do this, the more we learn as well. But those are scenarios that have happened and how we dealt with it. Generally, I have the links to the different rug registries. And I also, for different purposes, there are people who in our conversations also want to know who could repair them. So I have, in Nova Scotia, for example, I have a list of those who have approved to have their name mentioned should they want some repairs done to the rug. So that's another opportunity as well.
Do you have the same thing for the Ontario Hook and Craft Guild registry, people that will repair rugs here?
We haven't yet. And Ontario is much larger than Nova Scotia. However, I think that's something that Diane might even have wind as to who might want to do that. What we did is, in Nova Scotia, is we put out a notice to the members to say who in our guild repairs rugs. And then secondly was, if we're asked during the registry who would repair them, do you approve with us giving them your name? So what I try to do is find people in different areas, much like Ontario. You'd want to have a few in southern, northern, eastern, western, because it's so big. So that's what I do here. Who lives in the different areas that it wouldn't cost a whole lot to travel and all that type of thing to have it repaired.
Yes, and I can see that would be very useful information in Ontario. We're constantly asked by people that don't hook rugs, but who have inherited rugs or whatever, if we know of anyone who will repair them, and those people are few and far between. So it would be a very useful thing for the Ontario Hooking Craft Guild to have.
Yeah, you raise a valid point there. I think we should put a notice out through the OHCG asking who does and if we could compile a list. That's a valid point. I'm going to make that as my to-do.
Where is the information that you receive for the rug registry? Where is it stored?
Right now, Diane and I collect the information, more so Diane. Diane keeps a running file of all the information that she receives, and including the photos, and then we post them. If it depends on how they register. Some of them will register online. So the Ontario Guild has a rug registry online, and you can register there. What happens, and it goes through and I receive it. So I look at the information and then I forward it on to Diane. So she keeps the file of all the rugs that are registered. So she and I both have copies, but she maintains, if you will, a database, whether it be hard copy or electronic. So that's where it's housed. And what we're hoping to find, and again, in Nova Scotia, what we have is we collect all the information. So I collect all the information and the stories and the pictures, and then I have to prepare a binder, and then I deliver them to the Nova Scotia Archives every 2 years, and the Nova Scotia Archives maintains it forever. So we're trying to find a similar process in Ontario. We haven't been successful yet, but that doesn't mean we won't. I think I can speak for Diane as well. What people appreciate is the fact that if we can post the images online and a little bit about the rugs, that travels to all over the world. So, you have people that are in their 70s or 80s that have all these rugs rolled up under their bed. They all have a story. Yeah. And while they're still alert, it's amazing to capture their stories because nobody's asked them about them before. Like, why did you hook this rug? Why does it mean this to you? What does this little thing in the middle mean? And what you hear is there is no two stories the same, even if it's the same hooker. There are no two stories the same. There are no two rugs the same. And to me, that's amazing. I love it. So that's why I'm doing this. What happens, and it's all good because we have to start somewhere, is that whoever registers the rugs, they go home and they tell two friends. Then the two friends think, oh, well, I have a rug. I should do this. And then the next thing you know, when you have the next one, there's a big lineup and you have to make appointments. But that's a good problem. And they get emotional. Like I have to take Kleenex with me because they start sharing the story and they've not told the story before or never even thought about it. And the tears come down. And it's very moving. It's very moving. And then those who have never hooked before, but they're bringing this rug, then they take a beginner's course because they want to hook too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all that. It's all that. It's amazing. It is. I love it. I love it. I know we do it online. I know there's the option to register the rugs online, but there's nothing better than sitting across the table from them and letting them tell their story because it's different. And a lot of people our age who have these rugs rolled up under their beds and in trunks aren't computer savvy, and they would rather tell the story. And to have them tell the story, you get the goosebumps because they're so excited too, and they get emotional, and you can't help but get emotional. But that's what makes it important, and that's what makes it meaningful. And they walk away feeling good about it. We fill out the form with them if they haven't filled it out, because some of them don't know what to write, and sometimes they don't fill out the right information. So we take the information. We have measuring tapes to measure. to put the diameters in there and some information about it. And then we assign it a number, and then somebody in your group, whether it be you or whomever, sews a label on the back. So what we do is we take a photograph of the front, and you can either take a picture of the whole back. So those two pieces are the minimum that we take to put with the information that they submit. And people appreciate it because, like I said, they don't want to sit down and do it online. They don't know how to take a picture and download it on the computer. They don't know how to do that. So let's make it easy because they have a story to tell and we want to hear it.
Can anyone access the information online, the registry, the rugs that are registered?
Yeah, so on the Ontario Guild, I understand their website for the rug registry is under construction, so they can't see the pictures. But what Diane does is she sends photographs to be posted and a little bit of information. So if someone wants to know something about the rug, they would probably go to the website and email us. So I would get the inquiry. And then between Diana and I, we would look through the history and we would give them some information. We wouldn't tell them who owns the rug or their phone number or their address. It's general information about the rug, not so much about the owner because of confidentiality. I would urge anyone who has a rug, whether they know the story about it or not, if they can deem it's approximately 25 years old, the guild wants them. They want to preserve the history of the past because somebody in like Owen Sound might have, there could be a different style of rug hooking in Owen Sound than there is down in Toronto. The same as in Nova Scotia, like Lunenburg hooks differently than Pictou, that hooks differently than Cheticamp and Cape Breton, but that's what makes them unique. The other thing that I would mention, and Diane and I are both, I think we both agree on this, is the process for registering the rugs in person is not difficult. You need someone to sit down and help you fill out the form. You need somebody to sew a tag on. So if somehow we could get a couple people in each of the regions of the guild to do this a couple times a year in their own region, that's cost effective, it's beneficial, and it's in their own area. So I think it could blossom to more than Diane and myself. I'm in Nova Scotia. She's in one part of Ontario. Ontario is a big province, but you have lots of representatives that somebody can thread a needle and sew a label. We can provide the numbers, the registration numbers, but then you're bringing it back to life again as a registry all over Ontario instead of little pockets. That would be my message. How can we spread the word and get people engaged in this? Because it's not difficult to do. I know for myself, we have a couple areas in the province that they're just passionate about this. They want to know when I'm coming again. And they have them, I have given them the special markers, I've given them blank tags. So if somebody pops up at one of their hook-ins, they call me and say, can I give this person a number? Well, here's the number you give them, send me the picture, it's all done. Like it's encouraging to see that there's interest. When they bring these rugs under their arms and they lay them on the table and they don't tell you anything at first, and then you start asking, who is the hooker? Tell me. Well, then you hear everything, whether you want to hear it or not. But they walk away, and like I said, it expands. They go tell their husband, who tells somebody, who tells somebody. The next thing you know is, well, my sister said blah, 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 blah. And it's all good. But if we could only write a book, and maybe we could write a book after we have a few weeks. So I'll tell you a brief story. I volunteer at the Hooked Rug Museum of North America here in Hubbards, Nova Scotia. And I was down there the other day, and they were telling me about this lady who donated these rugs from Ontario. But she said, I don't know anything about it. I don't have the paperwork. I said, you just hang on a minute. So I flipped the rug over. I said, see those numbers? I will get back to you by tomorrow with the story on that rug. So I emailed Diane and I said, tell me what you have on file for this number. And I sent it to the museum and they said, that's exactly what I wanted for their records. So that worked out well. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So the point is to get them registered.
That number goes a long way. And it doesn't cost them
Yeah.
anything. It doesn't it's free.
No. No, which really appeals to rug hookers.
It's the stories that we want. It's the stories need to be cherished. You know, it's getting the word out that it's okay to bring them into register even if you don't know about them. And you know, they will learn a lot while you're examining the rugs as well. You know, whether it's wool or yarn, or if it's made with burlap or jute or whatever. That's all things that they didn't know before they brought that rug in. It's the history, the stories, and the preserving of the craft that we need to maintain for a very long time. So that's it, Jennifer. Anything else?
I think those are, you've pretty well covered it. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and it's going to come across so well in the videos.